Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with Josh Arcemont. He is a martial arts school operator and my business coach. So, Josh, give us a little bit about your martial arts business background.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My business background started martial arts in the 80s. Karate Kid was kind of that era. Moved into the 90s, and my fascination was with Bruce Lee and then mixed martial arts. Got involved with Taekwondo in high school. My mom married my martial arts instructor when I was in high school, and so it became a family business. And
Wait. Go back. You can't skip over that. Okay. Yeah, dive into that, baby. Go in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, 15 years old, we move and I start at a new school, enroll in a martial arts school, a Taekwondo school. My parents got divorced around that time. And not too long after that, my mom started dating my martial arts instructor. Yeah.
God damn. How did you feel about that at the time?
Oh boy. He may be watching. So, hey, Master Cantu, how'd I feel about it? Well, 15, 16 years old. I was a little rebellious at the time. I appreciated that he was there for my mom, and I appreciated the opportunity that it gave me to kind of see behind the curtain of running a martial arts school. So, I mean, it wasn't bad, but yeah, it gave me an opportunity, So like I said, I love the martial arts. I had already thought about wanting to do this for a living, and it was just like the gates opened up, and now my mom started teaching in the school. And she was running kickboxing classes, and I was teaching classes right out of high school, and it became a family business. And I worked with for years.
I honestly answer this. Did it change your experience in the school knowing that your mom is not dating your instructor?
Yeah,
As a
sure.
student?
Yeah, no, yeah, it a little bit. I mean, I was always really good at kind of compartmentalizing my role. I'm at home were one thing. When I'm at the school, it was very professional. He was Quan Janim, Master Cantu was what we, and in front of everyone, we kept it very, very professional. We may have had our little disagreements and arguments behind the scenes or whatever happened at home. We never took it to the school. So,
Oh, wow. Okay.
I always understood that and was very professional about that aspect of it because I didn't want to take away from the mystique of it all, with my students. You know what I mean? I didn't want to burden too much. So yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast, probably.
Yeah. So wait, are you married now?
I'm married. Yes.
You're married. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is that how you met? Your wife? She was a student at the school, and
it was. Yep. It was.
Nah.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I was just joking, but.
No, okay, I was 32 before I got married. And
Okay.
So, imagine 18 years old to 32, all I did was work, eat, sleep, train, teach martial arts. I mean, I didn't have a life outside of martial arts. And so for me to meet anyone, I wasn't going to bars, I wasn't going to clubs. I was literally married to the lifestyle of martial arts. So I always said leading up to that, man, if I find someone, it's got to be someone who's involved in the martial arts. And lo and behold, the echoes kind of the same thing happened in my life. But so my wife, I met her son was training with me, and that's how we met. So we started to date, and it worked out. We started our own business, and it grew from there.
How do you make that happen without ruining the relationship or worrying about this giant dramatic event to happen at your school? How does that actually start? Sorry if I'm being too personal. I'm just
it's all good. But my wife always says you share too much, but I don't have a problem.
She's definitely not gonna like this.
Yeah. So okay, you're talking about the relationship when I met her.
Yeah. How does that?
So I met her when I was working at my family's martial arts school.
Okay.
So our school that we had together. I didn't. So part of that story was after me and my wife met and got together a few years after that, I split and opened my own location. And so anyway, when I met her, I was over there, but we kept it secret. No one knew. I mean, my parents knew, but we kept it secret from the students. She's very private, like I already had kind of alluded to. So, she wanted her privacy, and I didn't think it was necessary to kind of let everybody know and make a big announcement about it until we got married.
And how do you navigate that relationship of her working? She worked in the school, right?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
she didn't work at the
She
school at
did
any
not.
point.
No, 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 no. Yeah,
Oh,
her
okay, okay.
son was a student.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
So you keep it like you keep that part of your relationship in terms of your business completely separate.
correct. Yeah,
Okay. Was that like a conscious decision, or she just
it
never really
was.
wanted to get involved in the martial arts
I mean,
industry?
she didn't really. She had her own career going. She was working at a local college here, and so she had her own thing going, and she was independent. And so when we met again, I was 32, she was late 20s. We kind of had our own life established, and yeah, so she was never really involved with working in the school. I saw firsthand what it did to my parents, them working together. You work together all day. You're dealing with issues and the stress of business and work, and then you bring it home. And then at home, it's hard to separate the two. And it did cause
Hmm.
stress on them. Ultimately, they ended up getting divorced later on as well. So I kind of always, in the back of my mind, thought it would be best to separate the two. And she's okay with that. Now, she did start training years after I opened the school. She did start training. She became a black belt. She got her second degree. She's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. But as far as the business side, we keep that separate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I feel like most of the time that's probably a better bet. Like I think it's the rare occurrence where it does work, then more than like
Yeah.
yeah, most of the time it doesn't, right? At least from the stories that I've heard. When I at some point when I had a girlfriend I dated for about 5 years. Okay, so we didn't end up going past that. The relationship kind of ended there. But a year like two, my brother we were at a meal like lunch or something, and my brother who's the founder of Action Karate. We have like 30 plus schools, and do you know him personally or no?
I don't. No.
Yeah,
Facebook.
so yeah, okay. So yeah, so we have 34 schools now, founded by him and his partner. And we were at lunch one time, like my girlfriend and I, maybe like a year and a half in or something. And he's like, "Hey, like, why don't you open up a school to her?" I mean, she didn't have any experience or anything, but he's like, "Why don't you learn how to?" She's like thinking of like trying to find another job. So he's like, "Why don't you start training and open up a school?" And I turned to him like, never you ask that ever again, my guy. Like, and we had a little talk later that day. I'm like, I don't want my girlfriend involved whatsoever.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want my relationship to be involved in the business. I want it separate.
Same. I'm the exact same way. And I know,
Yeah.
like, I'm the one who's passionate about the martial arts, right? She likes it. It's fun. She enjoys
Yeah.
the physical outlet, but it's my thing. And I think it's important for everyone to have their own thing. My kids worked in the school for a period of time as well, but eventually they move on, they find their passion, their talent, and that's okay. I'm not here to force anyone to like what I like. And I think it's good that we're keep it separate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So tell me about your school. So you have one school or multiple schools?
Two schools.
Two schools.
We opened the first one in 2010,
Okay.
Hero Martial Arts Academy. And 2.5 years, a year and a half now, year and a half ago, we opened our second location.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So tell me about I'll talk about the new one. Let's talk about the old one first. Like, what
sure.
revenue do you look for your school? Like, obviously, over the course of 10 years, it's kind of going to go up and down at different points. But like,
Yeah.
what's the perfect amount of revenue you feel like? Not perfect, but like, what's like your target when you get to this amount of revenue per month? You're like, okay, we're doing good.
Well, right now we're at around 61,000 on
Okay.
average. And we're happy with that. We would like to do a little bit better. We've got around 350 students, give or take, in this one location. Now it was as high as 390 at one point. So I just think this year's just been a little tougher than the previous 2 years. To maybe it was a little easier those previous 2 years coming out of COVID, I think. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, yeah, I think that we're happy with that first location, and really, up until a few years ago, our average was somewhere around 40, 42. So just like in the past 3 or 4 years, we've upped that, and a big part of that has been kind of putting the systems in place. A lot of that had to do with Maya, giving us some of those systems, but just implementing the systems helped kind of change the revenue of the school. And we grew our school from 280 students to 350 students, bless you. And
Thank you.
yeah, so anyway, that's our target for that one. And we're pretty happy with that. And that's really the reason why we decided to open the second location, is because we felt like we kind of like got to the point where the school was able to like maintain a certain level. We had a consistent, number of students. We were making good revenue. And the most important part, I wasn't in the day-to-day operations at the school, and that was a big goal of mine when I first opened in 2010, was to eventually kind of work myself out of the day-to-day operations so that we can kind of see how this thing would work without me. And if it could continue to grow and run successfully without me, then we could then look at opening a second location. So we felt like we did that.
Do you own 100% of your location you have now at the first one?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. And do you bring on partners for the second one, or just do it on your own?
No, just did it on my own. Yeah.
Okay.
We had some staff that were ready. Most of my staff has been with me since they were kids, They're just like, I've been doing this long enough. Actually, a lot of them were with me at my family's martial arts school back in the day, and they grew up. And then when I opened my location, they kind of came on board and trickled over. But, a lot of them, like when they were teenagers, like when they're teenagers, they don't require much, they're happy making $15 an hour is a lot of money for them. Right. But as they grow and they build their family and they go from, 15 to 20 to 25, now 30, they require more. Like they need more money to make a living. And, we just could not provide that with one location. You know what I mean? So we opened the second location to provide opportunity for staff.
Yeah, that's the best reason. The best reason is never for greed. Like I want to make twice as much money. It's got to be opportunity for someone else.
Yeah, I mean, money's good too. But it's good for everybody. That's the thing. It's a good move for everybody. And now that we open that second location, same model. So I own it independently, but I have my team in place over there, and of course I don't have to work. I don't have to teach the classes over there either, which was always the model going forward. Go
ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, and now I'm at a place where we want to do the third, so we're looking in the next year or two to open a third location, because now we feel like we got it. We know the systems, it's been proven, and now it's all about building a team. So that's kind of where we're at. That's the phase we're at right now, is trying to build a bigger team so that we can open that third location. I'd love to hear about how you guys did 35. Like that to me, it blows my mind. That's amazing,
Yeah. We could definitely dive into like what I want to talk about also is, I guess, really team training, because it's probably a question you get often as
I do actually
as a consultant for Maya, and like some of those systems you built that help you scale to location 1 to location number 2.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's listening, if you go back, I did a podcast episode with my brother Solomon.
Cool.
So if you search his name in the podcast, you'll see like, here's how we scaled. And there's also an episode with Michael St. John where we talk about the entire blueprint of our training process, kind of like A to Z of how we get people, invite them, how we structure our trainings and our meetings and stuff like that. So if you want to go back and listen to that, search for Solomon Brenner or Michael St. John. And if you go to Spotify, you can search within the podcast itself and kind of scroll back. So now that you have a couple locations and you want the one to run without you for the most part, I'm sure there's still more hand holding in the beginning when it's like brand new.
For sure. Yeah.
So how do you structure your pay or your benefits package for your staff?
Well, what we do is we started off at the second location. We had a program director, someone running the front office. They're in charge of enrolling people and kind of all the behind the scenes. And then we had a head instructor who was in charge of everything on the floor. And they worked together as a team. And both of them, starting pay was $40,000 a year as starting pay. And up until we get to a certain point. So it's we follow a pathway set. You talked to Mike Metzger, right? And so he kind of said, we're licensed CMA, so we're with CMA. So they put out a package of basically how to pay your staff, and the basic concept is it's based on quarterly revenue. So if we hit our goals, quarterly, their pay will increase or decrease based on how well the school did financially each quarter, which incentivizes them to hit the goals for each quarter. And up until this point, we've never had a quarter where they've lost money. They've only added to the revenue. And so it kind of helps them think in the terms of being like an entrepreneur in a sense. Their goal, their number one goal, is to help the school make money. So right now, like at our first location, our head instructor is making about 80 grand a year. At our second location, I think they're making around 55, 60,000 a year currently.
So can you give me a sample? Like, okay, a school does, let's say 100K quarterly, so do about 400K a year.
Mm-hmm.
How much would you expect your head instructor and program director to make?
Honestly, it's all in a spreadsheet. And so so I don't have it all memorized, but if we're looking at like 400K a year, we're probably looking at somewhere around that $60,000, $70,000 a year mark, just depending on, and there's some bonus structures embedded in there too. So if we do over a certain number, they get 10% over a certain number, which can kind of play with, how much they make throughout the entire year. But we're looking at something like that.
Yeah, I've been experimenting. Well, first of all, to even go back,
Yeah.
if you run a martial arts school and your head staff, I'm not talking about your teenagers, but like your head staff, whether it's a head instructor, program director, like they need to be attached to whatever the revenue of the school is for compensation. We call it revenue share, right? And because if they're not, they're never really going to be bought in, and they're not really going to understand what's happening with the business. And also, you can't have it attached to profit because they're not in charge of profit. Right. They can't be in charge of how much money you spend on uniforms.
Exactly.
So revenue is going to matter more than anything. I've been experimenting over the past, I don't know, maybe like year or so with offering bonus incentives that are non-monetary, like in addition to the revenue share. So revenue share for us is the head instructor and the program director. I have no problem just saying this out loud, like exactly. The program director and the head instructor, or I guess the full payroll, is 30% of the school's revenue. So the schools, let's say, did $100,000 a year, which is obviously terrible, but let's say that happened. They would get $30,000 to split, so they'd each make 15K. Okay. So, and if they want to bring on,
I'm sorry. So you keep like the assistants and part-time people, that's not included in that 30%?
No, that is included. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I kind of corrected myself. It's full payroll. So like, let's say they want to bring on an assistant instructor and they get paid assistant instructor, let's say $400 a month or $500 a month. Someone who works like 1 or 2 days a week sort of thing. Right. And that comes out of the full payroll bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. But our payroll never exceeds 30% of the total revenue. That's where we
exactly where we try to keep it as well. 30%.
Yeah.
And it can be under, but never over.
Yeah.
Unless
never over.
I'm trying to open another location, because like right now we're kind of overstaffed at our first location because we're trying to kind of put logs on the fire, so to speak, because we got to build up a team so that we can open that third location, and so we've got some people in training right now, so our payroll's a little, but we're like at 32, 33, you know what I mean? So it's not not.
And sometimes that makes sense, because then sometimes you're overpaying someone, you're hiring someone that really maybe financially doesn't make the most sense right now, but it's an investment for the future, so you're okay with it, right? I've definitely done that before too. I hired an instructor who full-time worked for us during COVID, and our schools are in Philadelphia, New Jersey. He worked in Florida. Okay, so I never even met him in person, and he was a full-time instructor for our online students. And like I held on to him, even though it didn't really make sense at all times. In fact, a lot of times it didn't. But like I just knew he was such a valuable asset, just good, and it's such a good part of the team. Like I love talking to him, super dependable. It just made sense to overpay him at some points based on the revenue. And then at some points, the school and the online program was doing so well, like deep into COVID, that it was almost like he was getting underpaid for what we were getting out of it. There was some point during COVID, we had like 120 to 150 students, all online, like 100%. And they weren't even local. They were in California and Texas. So we were doing 6 figures just in revenue from online students. And I barely attended the classes. He just literally taught it from his Zoom like on his computer at his place in Florida. It wasn't until like a year or two later that we actually met in person, which is kind of crazy. Like I think
But
about it
that's an
now.
important point though. Like I feel like my job right now, my main priority is to recruit and retain talent. You
Mm.
know, find the talent and you know, make sure that we train them and we can keep them. And so if that means paying a little bit more right now, because in the future this person is a rock, they have the potential to really take it far and be a rock star, then I have to do that. You know, even if it means I take a little less money, but in the long run, we'll all make more money. You know, so that's kind of what.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes with martial arts school owners, they expect good people to accept like slave labor wages, which
Right.
is probably kind of what it was like 30 years ago or 20 years ago. I don't think I got paid for classes ever as a teenager, maybe till I was like 16. And even then, I don't know, was I making $5 an hour? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, but don't get me wrong. When we first started, I was paying teenagers minimum wage, right? And they're
Right.
fine with that for the most part. But if you want to get like good dependable adults with work experience, they got to make a good living. Like they can't just be like, like they have to have another job in order to work with you,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
So you got to invest in them. I don't know if you've seen the story, really interesting. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of years. But I recruited I do. It's kind of similar to you. Like I'm always like looking for talent. Like anyone who has talent that like wants to teach the martial arts, we'll either open up a new location for them, or we will let them know when someone leaves the location, there's a spot opening. Because with 30 plus locations, like there's going to be people that drop out here and there, and so we got to
Right.
have people on the bench ready to go. Because and even if we do have people on the bench ready to go, like sometimes they're too far from one location, because when you have 30, it can't all be on top. It can't always be local, right? There might be a 2 hour drive, right? So then it's like, okay, well, they can't drive 2 hours away from their family. So there's people, whenever I see, because I'm friends with a lot of martial arts people on Facebook, if someone says like, hey, I just left my school, yeah, thank you guys for all the time I've had there, and I'm moving, or I don't know, maybe they had a bad breakup or something, I'm in their DMs like immediately. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, I hope everything's all right with your school. I don't mean to cross boundary or cross any lines, but like, if you're ever interested in keeping a profession in martial arts, because like we can offer them like health insurance and
Right.
retirement packages, and
Right.
like give them a real wage, because a lot of times they're making not enough money, so they're just kind of forced out.
Right. Right. And if
But
you could provide them with an opportunity to make real money and like you said, have, you know, retirement options and healthcare, I mean, like it's better than working and struggling by yourself. You know what I mean?
absolutely,
And then I do
absolutely,
the same thing in the local area. Like, you know, there's schools around all around us, right? And a lot of them pop up and close down, you know, in a few years. And so I'm always kind of establishing and making relationships because you never know, you know, listen, if they're passionate enough to open their own location and take that risk and they love martial arts that much, that's awesome. That says a lot. It's a whole different skill set to be able to grow a business and maintain it. You know what I mean? So a lot of these
yeah.
guys are great instructors, but not the best at business. And so, you know, maybe we can partner with them and we can provide that avenue where they could do what they love and not necessarily have to worry about the business aspect of it all. Like we can handle that. We can train them on that. That can be my responsibility. And then you can just do what you love. Because I have some instructors who want nothing to do with the business. They just want to be the talent. They just want to teach. They just want to do what they love and they're happy with that. And that's great, you know. But I've got other instructors who, like Faith, she's my manager here at this location I'm at right here. Her goal, her dream is to be able to manage multiple locations. Like that's what she really wants to do. But not everybody has that, you know, desire. So yeah, I think that's awesome that you know, I think that's awesome that you're doing that. It's a good idea to kind of scour and just kind of keep those relationships. And if someone does, you know, go out of business or shut their doors, maybe we could provide them with an opportunity.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
like 9 out of 10 of those, to be clear,
Yeah.
nothing ends up happening.
Sure.
Right. Like I'll message sometimes, like I'll message them and we'll get in a phone conversation. I did this kind of recently actually, and the person didn't live that far like from us. And I was like, maybe an hour drive. And I'm like, hey, you could join our Zoom meeting. That way you can see like what we're about. First, I do a Zoom call with them myself because I don't want some person coming to a Zoom meeting with our staff and then being like a total psycho person. You can get some characters in the martial arts. So first, I'll be the filter, right? And then I'll have them join like our full team meetings on Zoom to see kind of like behind the scenes, because if they're coming from another style or another school, there's a whole other set of culture. So I want to make sure they even vibe with us. If they don't, that's okay, but they got to vibe with us.
Right.
And then after that, I'll have them go visit one of the schools to watch some classes. And usually we'll throw them on the mat and say, okay, teach a front kick, go. Or teach a back knuckle or whatever. Like teach anything. I don't care what they teach. They could teach a triple backflip, as long as like they're just showing their personality skills, right? Or their teaching skills. And I sometimes will be like, yeah, I really want a job. I really want to be a part of something. And it's like, oh, but I don't want to drive 45 minutes. And I'm like, well, you don't have to drive 45 minutes forever, just today, because the right people are going to be there, or whatever day we choose. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll get back to you later. I'm like, okay. Like, how many opportunities are there in the martial arts industry for people to hire you and make a really, really good wage with all the benefits of a regular job? Like, those are far and few between. Like, if you don't want to drive 45 minutes for like an interview, then you don't really want it.
No,
right?
Of course not. Yeah. No, that's like a red flag right there. And they did you a favor, by not coming in.
Yeah.
But little things like that. Like, we'll do the same thing when we are looking to hire someone from the outside. We do the same thing. We interview with them. We interview with them, with us and the team, because we want to see how they vibe with the team, and if the team vibes with them. Because they may be a really great person, but if the team, the team unit's really, really important. And we've got a really good team unit here. And so it's got to mesh. But when we do get to the point where they come in and we get them to teach, just a warm up first. So they come in one day, they teach a warm up, and then they stay for a couple classes to watch us teach. So they can see if this is something that they can do at the level that we're doing it, or at the style and the culture. If we make it past that point, then we have them come in and teach a segment of class. And that's usually a martial arts technique. And then we have some pre-recorded, videos that we did, tutorials. I'll send them one of those and say, hey, teach this. And so I just want to see if they take the time to actually watch the video, study the video, and teach it the way that we teach it. And that says a lot, right? And a lot of times when we get to that point, before we even get there, they end up not coming in or not answering the call, because I think they realize, oh, this is way more involved and detailed and organized than I had thought. I thought I was just going to come in and, teach what I want to teach. Well, it's not going to be that way here, So I think that's a good way to kind of set the relationship from the beginning, let them know what's going to be expected, and let you know how detail oriented those kind of people are. That's what we want. Those kind of people.
9 out of 10 should be a no. 9 out of 10 are not a no. Like, also, if you come out of desperation, like, oh, I need someone like right now, and you're kind of pulling all the strings to kind of make it work, and you think maybe, I don't know, it's never. You got to be looking when you don't need someone.
Right.
That's when you need to be looking always. Like, I don't need someone right now, but I messaged someone last week, and the way I was able to find the online instructor, and I also recruited an instructor from South Africa, from Johannesburg. And I had to get him a visa, and that's a whole nother story.
Okay.
And at like $12,000 in legal fees, and took over a year. But he's here now running my locations, or my one location. So we could get into that later if you want, but that's how I found them. Is literally just messaged them on Facebook, right? And and it's just, you should be friends with local martial artists in your area. Like, our biggest competition, one of our biggest competitors is like Amerikick. I don't know if they have those near you, but like there's a ton. Yeah, there's a ton of them, right?
Yep.
I'm friends with a guy who runs the one down the street. Like, he likes my Instagram and Facebook posts, and we'll roll sometimes together. I haven't seen him in a while, but every once in a while, and it's great. Like, we're like, I don't care. I think it's really important that people network this way. Like, you're a business coach and you're with Maya. Technically, you're my competition. I do business coaching too. I don't care. People are going to hire who they like, and they'll use different people. Right. Yeah, and there's different people at different times, right? Like, that you'll work with. Like, I've hired multiple people that are technically competitors, and sometimes I'm more feeling this person, sometimes I need someone else for this other thing, and
depending on where they're at too, right? Like, at their stage of understanding of business, like sometimes, like if you're a white belt in jiu-jitsu and you wanted to, learn from Rickson Gracie, yeah, you can learn a lot from Rickson Gracie, but a lot of the value that he adds is way up here. You know what I mean? It would make more sense for someone who's a high-level black belt to learn from Rickson. Like, really, if you're a white belt, you really, like, a purple belt could teach you a lot. You know what I mean? So it just depends, and personality matters as well, right? So that's why I think it's great that, in our industry, we have some really great, mentors and coaches out there for business because, yeah, everyone can kind of take their pick. I've had several different coaching mentors over the years. We were talking a little bit, I know we're kind of going all over the place, but we were talking a little bit before we started about real estate. And I have real estate mentors as well that, I'm a student, they're a coach, and they kind of help me through the process. So I think like in life, it's very important, whatever you want to be good at. And we know this intuitively with martial arts, like no one would buy a book on martial arts and then expect to learn and be a great black belt just by reading a book or watching YouTube. You hire a coach, right? And you hire the best of the best. And sometimes we have to adjust and change the coaches based on, what our needs are and where they can take us. Like when in my 20s, I competed a lot. Like I was really into competition, sport, taekwondo,
Like the NASCA circuit, or is that different?
It was like the Olympic circuit, so to speak. So it was like in taekwondo, it was like state, regional, national, Olympic team. So it was kind of that. And but I got first in state. I got first in state one year, but I never made it to like the national team level. I didn't get that far. But my coach could only take me so far. And I knew that at some point, if I wanted to get to that next level, I would have to join another team, right? And find a coach who could take me to that level. Well, it just so happened my family had a martial arts school and I was kind of tied to them. So I never really took that opportunity. And then as I began to coach my students and train them for tournaments, I got my students up to state champion, nationals. I got a couple of them like third, second place, but I could never get a national champion. And it's because I didn't have that experience. You know what I mean? So I say all that to say like different coaches could get you to certain levels, and some are right for certain times and others are right for other times, depending on what your goals are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you have like your second school's running,
yeah,
and then you're thinking about opening up a third. So do you plan to, sorry to kind of like switch topics from coaching, but
yeah,
hopefully that was somewhat smooth. Do you plan on purchasing the buildings that you move into? Because you own the building you're in right now, right?
Yeah. So I would love to do that if the opportunity came. But right now, I think with our second. So, okay, the first school we're in, it's a big like warehouse. It's a warehouse, but it's on a really busy road. So, 20 years ago, this was a warehouse and was field everywhere. We're in Texas, so we're kind of in the rural part of like outskirts of Houston. And then the city's kind of like basically crept in. And now we're surrounded by all, apartment complexes, and we got Walgreens and Walmart. But anyway, it's its own building. And so we kind of fell into buying this building by accident. And that's a whole story, but we own the building we're in now.
I always by accident buy buildings all the time. Like I fall and then I bought a building. I'm like, what happened?
Maybe accident isn't the right word. It wasn't necessarily something we looked to do like, oh, we're going to buy this building, then open a martial arts school. I had a student I was teaching private lessons for who was a broker, and I was complaining to him that we didn't have any parking. Like, we don't have any parking. We need more parking. We need to find a different spot because we can't grow. And he said, well, what have you ever thought about buying the building? And so, well, no, yes, maybe. And so we went down that road, and through that process, we reached out to the owner, asked if we could add parking. And they basically said, no, but we're looking to sell. And so we bought the building. And at that time, when we bought the building, I think it was around $2 million for the building itself. Now we have the space that we're in. We also have, it's two buildings, two actual warehouse buildings. And then on the other side, we have some tenants over there. So it provides us with a little additional revenue. But at the time when we bought it, I didn't have enough money to really afford the place. I think the payment, we needed like $400,000 down. And I didn't have that at the time. I had like almost to my name, I had like 120,000 at the time. That's all I
feel
had.
like it would be more. Is it commercial real estate 25%? I think
it was 20 at the time. So
maybe. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I thought
maybe my numbers are off a little bit. But
yeah.
But it was 400,000. I remember that. Like we needed 400,000. Okay. I only had 100, so I put 100 in on the deal because he was a broker. He found some partners, and so we own 28% of the building we're in right now.
Okay,
and it's great. I love it. Like, it provides us with some good additional revenue. We have control over the asset and, depreciation and all those things that I learned about that I had no idea what those things were. I've learned about it. So when I say accidentally, what I mean is I didn't know anything about real estate at the time. It was just something that an opportunity that fell in my lap. So with opening the second location, I would love to do the same thing, but really I think the best model for us is opening up in a strip center attached to a grocery store anchor. It's just the quickest way to grow the school. So we opened that second location. Within a year, we had 200 students, and it's just because of the traffic. We're nestled in a neighborhood right next to an elementary school. So I think that's the model going forward.
What's your rent?
Well, at this first location is 5,500 square feet. We're only paying $7,000 a month in rent for that. Of course, we're paying it back to our LLC. At the second location, 3,000 square feet, a little over 3,000. We're paying $9,000 a month in rent.
Yeah, that sounds like more like market value. Obviously, you're paying yourself. You're not going to make yourself pay a ton.
Right.
So $9,000 in rent for 3,000 square feet. That's really not that bad.
There was a time where I would have thought that was crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a time where $9,000 a month. Oh my God, who pays that much? But now I see it's a little bit of money when you think about the exposure you have, right? And you're paying, basically that's your marketing dollars being spent. And the fact that we grew from 0 to 200 in a year, we never really had a month where we weren't making money. I maybe a couple months in the beginning, and then after that, it was all profit. So I would pay more, if I needed to.
Yeah. See, the next step, maybe like 4 or 5 years from now, is you just buy the whole shopping center.
That would be cool.
And then the supermarket can be your anchor, right? You bring in an anchor.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that.
I was talking to this guy at a wedding. So it was like I don't know him personally. And he did professional gambling. It's literally what he does for a living. He's a professional gambler. Like, we'll go to Vegas for 4 months at a time and basically not leave the casino. And he was telling me he bought his dad was into commercial real estate, and he bought like somewhere a random part of New Jersey, like a shopping center where like the wife's husband died. She wanted to get rid of it. And she sold the shopping center for like 3 or 4 million. They did some work to it. I think they put in like 500 or 750 or something. And then there's a couple units empty. And then they found Sprouts as the anchor unit, which is like Sprouts is like a higher end supermarket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You have them. Yeah. So like a really, really good anchor tenant. And they had it evaluated after that, and they already have offers for like 16 million. And they're like, nah, the bank valuated at like 26. And I was like, oh my God, like that is a freaking gold mine. And this guy, like, it was so funny talking about it because he was like, yeah, I don't know, I'd put some of my gambling money in it and it just like worked out. I was like, that is kind of like how you just fell into a commercial building,
Yeah, right. Well, and that's the other side of things that I didn't realize when we bought the building is that it's looked at like a business, right? So if you get new tenants in, you increase rent, you basically increase the value of the business. And so what we did during COVID is we went back to the bank and refinanced, and we did like a cash out refi, and we got all of our partners back all their money, as well as the additional 100,000 I put in. I got that back. And so we refied, the value of the business went up, and then we acquired the land behind us a couple of years ago. So we're looking to develop that and or sell it. We're kind of in the process of clearing the land and getting it ready. We've got to tap into like city water and all that. So it's been a learning process, but it's definitely something that I can see how this would be super valuable in the future. So I'm not opposed to doing that. I do like the idea about buying the whole strip center. So yeah, maybe down the road.
Yeah. We'll do that. Let me know if you need some extra syndicates involved. I'll
you got it, man. Yeah. Same.
So the one thing you might be able to look for too with commercial. So I totally get being in a strip mall where there's just people just walk in. First of all, if you have an instructor who's running it and a new owner, and they have to fight for every new student because they're in some weird location, that's going to fail pretty quickly. They're going to get burned out. So then to have confidence of like, oh my God, my classes are already full, and you're just paying that marketing and their rent, like it's just the confidence alone they get from that is kind of worth
Right.
it. Because that first, it's kind of like when students first train, that first, 90 days or 100 days is kind of like where most people leave. Same
Right.
thing with instructors. Like if
Man.
they're not doing well in the first couple months, maybe a year if you can stretch it, it's going to be it's pretty much downhill
Very
after
tough.
that, or
Yeah, it's
they're
very
gonna peace out.
yeah.
But we like to, if you can, a lot of our schools are bank buildings, and a lot
Mhm.
of time bank buildings will be individually owned, and it's a separate pad. It's right next to a shopping center, like its own pad.
Okay.
So we have like multiple of our schools have vaults in them, like bank vaults,
Oh
which is
wow.
pretty freaking cool. It's literally got the big giant metal door and the whole turn thing. And
You put
I
all the
remember when
gear
I
in
moved,
there, or what do you what do
we,
you
we
put
do private lessons in the vault.
private lessons? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah, because
That's
it's
cool.
quiet,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and like, what else are we gonna do in there? It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
I think one of them might just use it as storage, but one of them I moved into, like my first school, like it was a bank building. My brother bought it. I was renting from him, and I moved in there, and there were still safety deposit boxes in the safe and in the vault, and they're all in like beautiful condition. Obviously, like thick metal. These are bank grade safety deposit boxes. And I'm like, oh my God, these are amazing. I wonder how much like these things cost. And I look it up, and they're like 100 grand each, and there's probably like two or three of them. And I'm like, holy crap! Like this is a gold mine. So I started calling banks like nonstop, like, hey, I have these safety deposit boxes. Do you want them? Blah blah blah. And banks would not touch them because it's like a liability issue, because someone could have already created keys, or they can't buy used safety deposit boxes. At least that's what they were telling me.
Oh man.
So we scrapped them for like $400.
Wow. But
Yeah,
the opportunity that it could have been there, you know? I mean, I would have been
I
thinking the
don't
same
know.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
so they don't buy used. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. But
yeah,
man,
they wouldn't. I don't know. I called a bunch. That's what a lot of them told me in a row. And after calling, 15, 20 places, I'm like, all right, I guess this is just. Maybe if I would have, I was also trying to open up a school, not like be a safety
right.
deposit box salesperson. So I was like, let's get this crap out of this room. And there's no way I could move it because it weighed like 1 billion pounds. So the fact that someone like removed it for me and scrapped it and gave us some money out of it was like, oh wow, this is great. But
So it was literally
uh,
just a scrap place that came and got them.
it was like some guy, and I don't know how what like mule strength this guy had, but like he had a little dolly, and he got them out. I couldn't even believe it. Like I don't know, I'm pretty sure he was by himself. I don't remember him even having someone. But yeah. So if you can see a bank that's like next to a shop, a lot of times they're uh, uh, like right next to it. So you kind of get both. Like you can purchase them because they're a
Mm-hmm.
separate pad, and they're also like immediately next to shopping centers,
Funny
or
you say
sometimes
that.
they're
I've
kind
got
of
a
in front.
Facebook friend who I know moved into a bank, a former bank, and I remember thinking, "Well, that's so unique. That's interesting." So maybe that is the
Yeah.
same. Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. And they also keep them in really good shape. Like the banks
Mhm.
take care of their stuff.
Right.
Um, one of them, the main one we first got. So the vault is still there, but the vault you can't lock. Like we screwed it like to the wall so kids don't like swing the door and like
Right.
hurt themselves.
Yeah.
But there's also a like I don't know what it's called, like maybe like a baby safe. But when I say baby safe, I mean this thing is once again bank grade safe in the back that like for me it has like my business origination documents or something. Like there's nothing even important in there. I mean I guess that's important, but like what else am I gonna put in there? But it's like giant door, big lock, and then he's got individual locks on the inside, and like no one knows the code besides me. Like I don't know what I'm really protecting, but
So that's
um
cool. So when you buy the bank, they give you the code. They give you all the access to the vault, I guess, right? I mean,
I don't think they did actually. I think for this one I had to like get um a locksmith to come in and like set the code for me. I don't think they gave. I think they had been closed. So the
okay.
bank that we bought had. When I say we, my brother, I didn't get to buy it.
Yeah.
I pay him rent, my landlord.
Yeah.
So the bank actually had a robbery. Like the bank. So I don't know if that's something to do with the closing, but maybe a year or two into running the school, we had someone come in. He's like, "Hey, I have to testify in court about this bank robbery that happened here. Do you mind if I look around?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "You sit down here." And I called my brother. I'm like, "Was there a bank robbery?" He's like, "Yeah, that was actually a thing." I thought I was getting scammed. Like, what is happening right now? And then the guy, I let him look around. It was like a national brand bank. I can't remember the name, but it was a big name brand bank that I think it got bought out by another bank. So I don't remember the name of it. Maybe it was like TD. No, TD still exists. Whatever it was. And yeah, it was cool. The guy was walking around. He's like, "Yeah, sorry, I just like need to testify, and I want this to like jog my memory." And I'm like, "Well, this looks nothing like a bank anymore." I had like internal offices. We ripped them all down. Now it's a big open, martial arts space. But it was like kind of cool to be like, "Yeah, there's a bank robbery here." Nice.
Yeah, right.
Kind of
We have like
badass.
bank robbery, self-defense, classes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So now that you're doing consulting, obviously when you consult, there's like obviously a benefit of it if you're helping other people, but you also it helps you. Like I get ideas from my clients all the time, right? So is there something you learned recently from like one of your clients, or maybe over the last year, that you're like, hey, this is such a cool idea. This is really working for retention or new students or something like that?
I mean, we hear so many different ideas. The people that I'm working with right now primarily are people that, their school is either really small or kind of in that medium range of like maybe 200, but generally speaking, we're talking like 50 to 150 students. There's not to say that there's not a lot of good ideas I hear, but mostly I'm working with them. I'm the one sharing ideas with them, trying to get them to that next level. Of course, within Maya, we have schools doing much better than me. Now, I will say this. I did have one client for a while who's still a client with Maya, but he's just no longer working individually with me. He came on board. He had 3 Krav Maga schools and was in the process of opening a 4th one. And so, one of the things I learned from him, talking with him, we were talking about ad spend, and I was just opening my 2nd location. He was just getting around to opening his 4th at the time. So we had a little bit of not competition, but, a little healthy kind of like rivalry. Let's see who can do better faster. And, he was signing up more students on average. And so I asked him, I'm like, man, what are you doing? Like, tell me, like, what are you doing? Like, this is great. And so he just shared with me like his ad spend, what he was spending like $2,000 a month. Just initially to get those numbers up, to get leads in so he can get more students. And I was spending on average about 1,000. And so we compared our numbers and he was doubling my numbers. And so I said, all right, well, let me just try spending 2,000, for a period of time to see what that does. And sure enough, we basically, doubled and caught up with them. And so it really taught me like, I don't think you shouldn't be spending the same amount every month, I don't think, but there's certain times of the year where it's important to hit the gas pedal. But it definitely reinforced the idea that like, you got to spend money to make money. And, I hear a lot of people talking about, I don't have enough money to spend on social media, or, my ad spends $250. I think it's important for people to understand, like, the more money you put into marketing, the more you're going to get out of it. Track your numbers, make sure you, know your return. But that was something that I really picked up from him, that I kind of added to my, game plan. What about you? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, good question. Well, when it comes to ad spend, obviously spending more generally going to do better, but I think only if they're sophisticated enough to understand how ads really work,
Sure.
right? Because then they're just burning money,
Right.
which is why you should just hire an agency and
Right.
just have them do it. Like either, there's a lot of them in our industry, and a lot of them are great for certain territories, not great for certain areas. And just, even if you go to a couple, figure out which one's good for you. Like we've used, and I'm a current client of GoPro, Chris Rodriguez. One of our other locations uses Relentless. I've used Logan before. I forget what his company is called at the moment. We've used a bunch of them, right? So sometimes they work great for some amount of time. Sometimes they stop working. But like, have an ad agency do it, because learning how to like run your own ads, unless you're like, first of all, it's maddening. Okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, so Chris put out a course 3 or 4 years ago on how to run ads. And so I took the course. It was like a 2-week course every other day for a couple hours. I'm taking notes. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it on my own. Getting all the knowledge. And then I decided to go out there and just do it on my own. And after a few weeks, I'm like, I'm not an expert at this. Why am I doing this? This is not why I got into martial arts. I'm just going to pay someone to do this. Just like I would pay a janitor to come clean the school, or hire my instructor to teach the classes. I'm going to hire someone. So I'm going to outsource that. You really want the experts working on your behalf. So I agree with that.
Yeah. All the time you're doing messing around with ads or boosting posts into infinity where you're literally your money is just catching on fire. You don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
You could be just getting new students.
Right.
I'd say like the thing that I learned to kind of answer that question is this wasn't even a client who I was coaching. This was like one of our newer schools. And like my niche within the niche, my like deep niche is organic marketing. So I want to be like the organic marketing martial arts guy, which is really what I push more than anything. Because there's two pillars to running a martial arts school. There's the paid advertising, and then there's the organic side. And you need the organic side is strategic partnerships. I think you call them partners in education. I call them strategic partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
I call it the Triangle Codex because we go through three areas: schools, daycares, and businesses, and create strategic partnerships with them to send you students. And this was through one of our martial arts schools we were opening, and a newer operator who like didn't have a ton of experience. And she's like, hey, like these programs you're doing, like, why don't you get people to fill out a waiver form? And she just like did it and then told us about it. And I was like, wait, you got them to fill out a waiver? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's so stupid and obvious. Why did I never think of that? Like, you're a freaking genius. And then from there, I just started requiring waiver forms to be filled out. So instead of just doing a program at an elementary school or a daycare or doing a partnership with the business, I just require waivers so I can actually collect information, so I can actually follow up with them, so I can actually have events that convert into new students because I actually have control and not just seeing whoever calls me. And that was like, man, that was an enormous change for us. Because then we also were collecting hundreds, if not thousands of leads from the education system that we can remarket to over and over, invite them to different events. So that's really what more than anything, what I teach people to do is like, hey, if you want to do paid advertising, go to this person. If you want like general business systems, Maya is going to be probably your best bet for that. It'll give you a lot of, I mean, can I help you with that stuff? Sure. But like what I like to do more than anything is like, hey, let me show you just the organic part. Because once you figure this out, you'll be able to do it on your own year after year after year after year and take control. So when your ads stop working or your website's acting funny or, whatever swings that are on the market, at any point you can go do these things and just go get students and bring it back. And there's nothing like more empowering than knowing like, if I take this action, I will get this result. Kind of the downside to that is it requires work. And not a lot of people are willing to do work to do it, right? Like you have to go talk to people. Like we're not like there's no magic email. Like I give people the templates, literally the scripts of what to say, how to say it, the emails, the text. I give them everything. But since we're not dealing with an algorithm, we're dealing with people and conversations. And how I might tell them how to say something, it might not come off the same way if they say it.
Right.
Or they might just say it a different way in the moment because they're nervous.
Right.
Like it requires them to put themselves out there, not just sit behind a computer screen and just, put their credit card in Facebook and hit submit. Yeah. So it requires actual work. So some of my clients, I'll be like, okay, what happened this week? And they're like, and I give them very specific homework. Like anyone who's my clients listening to this, like, oh, Matt, his homework. Like we get off the call. Like I have a Zoom call with them. I get off the call with them. I send them an email that has all the notes of what we talked about, or at least like general, like kind of bullet points. And it's like, here's the homework for next week. And it's like, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Right. And then when I get on the next call with them, I share my screen. I say, here's the homework. How did this go? How did this go? How did this go? And even though they're paying a lot of money for me to help them, you'd be shocked the amount of people that will like, oh yeah, I got busy. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I didn't do that. And it's like, okay, well, like I tell them, like, if you want to be successful, you need about 2 to 3 hours a week focused on organic, like total, which is not a lot. Like you should be doing 15 hours a week on marketing minimum. So 3 of that. So like, 1 day of that is focused on organic. And if you do these actions, 100% you're going to get new students. I guarantee it. Right. Like you'd be shocked the amount of people that are like, yeah, I got busy. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did that. It's like, it's so frustrating because I know if you do it, because I have clients that are really good at following the homework. And it's like every week is like, I'll get a text, 4 out of 7 enrolled this Saturday, 6 out of 9, 4 out of 8, whatever. They'll just text me like I had them text me the number out of however many people showed up. And it's like, oh man, listen, I promise if you just do the work. And I could see, we share a Google sheet that has like that tracks everything, and I could see when the last time they made an edit, and it'll be like 3 weeks ago. And I'm like, like no wonder nothing's happening. And then they'll get frustrated at me because they're not getting results because they paid all this money. I'm like, dude, you haven't even touched a sheet in 3 weeks. Like, I told you this is going to be work, and if you put in the work, I guarantee you'll see the results. But if the work doesn't happen, I guarantee you'll see nothing. So
100%.
That's like my biggest thorn in the side.
No, I can relate. And you know, there's people that are good at it and other people who aren't. And, you know, some people love to be held accountable. Others, you can tell, don't as much. They want the success. Yeah. They want the secrets, the tips. But, you know, I guess if I had a niche, it would be that the partners in education, you know, working with schools, you know, the school talks. And you know, I've done that for years. I did that way before we even knew what a school talk was, you know, PE instructor of the day. But that's how we grow our schools. I mean, that's like we did our stats, like 40% of our students come directly from working with the schools and doing school talks. So when I'm coaching people, I'm like, this is how you do it. This is how we grew to 200 students in a year. I mean, you know, there's people that did better, but I mean, 200 students in a year. It was all organic, getting into the schools face to face, talking with the students, getting those teachers to know who we are, building relationships. But it takes work, and you definitely have to get out of your comfort zone to do that. And some people just, man, they get sweaty palms. They start, you know, oh man, when they think about having to go in and talk to the principal or try to get into a school or doing a school talk. But I mean, that's our job. Our job is to push, you know, just like we push our students to get out of their comfort zone. Like that's where the magic happens. Like you don't grow, you won't build confidence unless you get out of that comfort zone. If you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting the same results. I mean, but you know, there is no magic pill, but all those things do work. So I'm with you 100%. Organic is the way to go. That is the way to go. You can pay for pay for all the marketing online. That's great.
Yeah.
But at
the end of it, you should do that too.
You definitely should do that, but that should not be the only answer, you know, to solve your problem.
Yeah, I agree. Like I always want control. If I can control, like I know if I open up a new school, especially that doesn't, maybe there's a lot of rent that I'm paying or something. Like, listen, I get new students in the door pretty quickly if I just go do the work and not just wait for Facebook leads to come in or wait for ads to start working.
Yeah.
The analogy I like to give is like going fishing. So this is way I literally talk about this during my sales calls, right? And I should make a video about it because I think it's good. But like, all right, you're gonna go fishing, and when you're doing paid marketing, I kind of like to think of it as like you're putting your bait on the hook. The bait is like your ad, right? Or whether it's a picture or video, and I call the fancy ad copy or the words that are on it. You put it on your hook and you cast it out into an open ocean. Okay. And the open ocean is Facebook or Google AdWords or whatever. And the problem is when you're in the open ocean, there's a couple problems. One is you can't control really the type of fish that you're going to catch. And a lot of times these are fish that are out of your area, don't speak the language. They're just not qualified. They're just not the right fish. So because you're in an open ocean, you're not in like a specific area where certain type of fish are going. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now you could target your ads to make that a little better, but for the most part, when you're doing hyper local communities, you just kind of trying to hit as many people as you can there. The second thing is when you do paid advertising, is you're not competing against the other martial arts school in your area. You're competing against like Tide and Coca-Cola and like Whole Foods, right? Like they have way bigger budgets, which means that their bait on the hook is 1,000 times prettier and 1,000 times better, right? Like you're not just competing against the other martial arts school, you're competing against all these other things. So that really, really makes it difficult. Plus you have, all the other small business hooks that are in the water with their bait. So like, I'm like, hey, if you want to totally avoid that, that's like a red ocean. Okay. There's lots of blood in the water. You want the blue ocean, do something that most martial arts schools will never be willing to do, which is put yourself in front of people and take your bait and your hook and put it directly in a barrel where all your future students are swimming. Okay. For me, that's the Triangle Codex, schools, daycares, and businesses. Because you put it there, even if your hook, even if your bait is not that great, like you don't have the prettiest picture, the best flyer, it doesn't matter because that's where they're swimming. So that's where they're going to bite. And that's how you're going to find your blue ocean. I love that. So that's me preaching. I know you're a good audience for that. So
no, I love it, man. Yeah. And just sticking with the basics, man. What works? I had a guy, Juan Moreno is an Olympic coach, a Taekwondo guy. If Taekwondo people know who he is. super well known, one of the best in the industry. He was just out at my school this past weekend doing a seminar, 2-day seminar. He taught my students, and we brought a bunch of people in from the community to take part in this, and like high level athletes. And so Juan's out there teaching 10 hours, the seminar for 10 hours. He's like Saturday, 6 hours on Saturday, another 4 hours on Sunday.
My God.
And I'm taking notes, because I'm like learning. And like 10 hours, he did probably 10 techniques tops, over and over and over. And it wasn't about trying to do all these different things and all these flashy movements. It's just about getting really good at the basics and doing them over and over and over until you're like a technician. You're like throwing darts. You're just so smooth with it and safe. And I just like thought about how that applies to business as well. I think nowadays, especially with the internet and social media, there's all these eye-catching gimmicks and videos and podcasts that you can be on that can maybe distract you. But at the end of the day, business is business. Stick to the basics and stick to what you're good at. Like, where's your talent? And if your talent is talking to kids and working with the businesses, like really lean into that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get you the results. And trying to do all these things, just whittle it down to what's the most efficient, what has been proven to get you the best results. And so it was just a good reminder that like all those lessons we learned through martial arts applies to really everything in life, and business is no different. So I just wanted to share that while it's fresh on my mind.
Preach, baby, preach.
Yeah, man.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here. If someone wants to reach out to you because they had a question or wanted help or whatever, how do they find you?
Yeah, guys, I'm on Facebook. So Josh Arcemont, you can check me out there, message me there. If you want to email me, you can do that. masterjosharcemont@gmail.com. Happy to help anybody, anytime. I don't do the consulting I really don't do it for money. I do it to help. At the end of the day, I think my legacy will be helping people and teaching. And that's my talent, teaching. And so I want to do that in as many ways as possible. So whatever anyone needs, even if it's just, hey, some advice, or they want to run an idea by me, I'm happy to help. No problem. Anytime.
Cool. Thank you for listening. My name is Matthew. If you want help learning how to do the Triangle Codex so you can dominate your local market, you can just reach me at matthew@wdojo.com or find me on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1. I also have a newsletter that I just started about a month ago called the 3-Minute Black Belt Business Newsletter. You can subscribe to that for free. I do 3 emails every week, 3-minute read each one, focusing on marketing, retention, and team building with no fluff, all action, all free. So if you message me newsletter, I'll send you the link to get in. It's got a 42% open rate. So to me, that's like evidence that it's really good, because for email, that's ridiculous. I've never had an open rate for anything like that in my life. So martial arts school owners seem to really like it. I got about 600 subscribers in the last 5 weeks. So please join in the newsletter. Thank you guys very much.
Guys, do it.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, man.